One day, I was on my way to a friend's dacha. It was a normal Friday at work. By evening, anticipating the taste of shashlik and beer, I was already racing by car along the highway from the city toward the dacha. The cottage was not far from the city, about 30 Kelvin m away, and I knew the way by heart. Nothing difficult, most of the time in a straight line, and only at the end of the road you must turn off in the direction of the village of Grafskoy, and there you are on your way. This day it was raining with a thunderstorm, and road visibility was poor. So I drove slower than usual. Surely getting into an accident today was not in my plans. Halfway down the road I hit a traffic jam. Where could it have come from on the highway? After 2 hours of turtle back, I saw the reason for the traffic jam. Road repairs. It's always like this. Every time I drive, it's always an adventure. Road repairs, accidents. Well, we'll have to take a detour. And how lucky. Just before the barriers that the workers install, there is an exit to the country road and a sign indicating that there is a detour through the village that way. What is that? The sign was so old that it was impossible to read the name of the village. Well, maybe it's not that bad. So I'll stay on the road for a while, avoiding the repair work, and fly full steam ahead to my friend. Driving off the road, I noticed that the bypass was decided to only me. All the other cars immediately turned around and drove away in the direction of the city. Strange as it was, maybe they know a shorter route. Anyway, I was already on a dirt road and I didn't feel like turning around. Of course, there were no lights on the road, and the road was somewhat old, and it was evident that there were very few cars on it. But it was hard to see because the rain had washed the road away so badly. I wish I wouldn't get stuck in this mire of earth and clay. It was difficult to drive, especially in my not-so-new car. And then, in the distance, the roofs of the houses appeared. It was past midnight, and the rain only got heavier, turning into fine hail. Great. Just what I needed. It was almost impossible to go on in that weather, so I decided to call my friends and tell them that I would not be back until the morning, but would try to spend the night in that village, hoping that someone would take me in. I took the phone in my hand. Of course, no signal. This is the 21st century, and if you turn off the main road for a couple of kilometers outside of town, you are in the Middle Ages. Well, I hope my comrades don't look for me in the middle of the night. They'll just fall asleep, and I'll be there in the morning. I drove up to the first houses. Apparently, this village consisted of literally one road along which on the left and right were the houses. Speaking of houses, they obviously didn't look very habitable. What was it with the other houses? I did not see. But the first two threw me into a small shop. To say that they were old is not enough. They were decrepit, shabby, overgrown with impassable thickets of some bushes. There was no light in any of the windows. I was not surprised. After all, it was late, and people were already asleep. Though were there people here at all? Suddenly lightning flashed, and I caught a glimpse of a silhouette on the road. It was tall, I would even say lanky. Its arms seemed longer than a normal person's, and it was dressed in some rags. At the moment of lightning on the street, after the lightning, it ran toward the house nearest to me. All this happened literally in a matter of moments. I wondered if the poor visibility and fatigue had made me think it was some kind of monster. It was, of course, a man fleeing from the hail and running to his house. I explained to myself, well, that means there are people in this godforsaken place, and I can arrange my lodging with them. I did not want to get out of the car. The rain was so heavy that even if I stay 30 seconds on the street, I will get soaked to the skin. But there was nowhere to go. To spend the night in the car is not an option at all. I drove as close as possible to the house where the man had run to. I took my purse and some money with me in case the owners asked for payment for the night, and pulling myself together, I jumped out of the car. I ran towards the front door of the house, under the porch. I got soaked. It became instantly cold and dank. Yeah, the weather in early October is really something. How does it go? There's no such thing as bad weather. Yes, it does. It sure does. The porch I found myself under was leaking, but it was better than standing in the pouring rain anyway. I knocked on the door. Masters, anybody home? Silence. I knocked some more. Nothing happens. I tried to open it, but nothing happens. What should I do? Running to another house means getting wet and very likely to get sick. No, I don't want that. Maybe we should go around the house and see if there's another door. I'll have to scout it out. With that plan in mind, I followed the wall of the house around the corner, glancing briefly out the window. For a second I thought I saw some movement there. Somehow, through a thicket of impenetrable bushes, I made my way to the back of the house. There was indeed a door here, facing the vegetable garden. Though I'm not sure these standing crosses were a vegetable garden. So, wait, crosses. Why would there be crosses here? The backyard of this house looked more like an old cemetery than a vegetable garden. Something is not right here. I did not have time to think about what I saw, because behind me, with a wild creak, the door opened. Without thinking twice, I dove inside. The door closed. There must have been a draft. The house smelled musty, and like it was burning. Well, at least now the rain wouldn't bother me. I picked up my phone and turned on the flashlight, glimpsing that the phone had 15% charge left. I started to move the flashlight around the room. A table, a chair, a mug, plates. Yep, I was in the kitchen. That's when I remembered, as if I had barged into the house uninvited and I should at least let the owners know I was here. Hosts, will you accept a guest for the night? If anything, I can offer you some money for your help. In response, silence, and only the sound of drops on the roof shattered it. Well, if there's no one here, then maybe I can sleep overnight unnoticed, and if the owners come, then I will explain everything in a friendly way. Okay, here's the plan. We need to find at least a bed. We can't sleep on the floor. I definitely can't find a bed in the kitchen, so I need to sneak inside the house. The floor creaked loudly under my footsteps. The atmosphere was not so good. The night, the old house with its own cemetery in the backyard, the creaky floor. All the horror movies combined came to mind. A chill ran down my spine. I walked through the kitchen and into a small room. There was a huge clock on the wall. You know, the one that strikes every hour as many times as the time is right now. It looked very old. Also in this room I saw a table with some rags on it, stained with soil or something else. The room was in a terrible state. The wallpaper was crumbling off the walls. The ceiling was stained. The whole room looked awful, and there was smeared dry dirt on the floor. There was a sprung bed next to the table. Its headboard was very rusty, suggesting that no one lived in the house at all. No one would sleep on a bed that old. No one but me. Sleep came on unexpectedly. Of course, I had not had enough sleep all week. Plus, I had already been on the road for more than 5 hours. Yes, The 30 kilometers to the dacha turned out to be a lot longer. I sat down on the bed, not being afraid that it would collapse and I would collapse on the floor, punching through the planks and falling into the basement. I wondered if there was any cellar here. Okay, well, the bed didn't fall apart. That's a good sign. Putting myself a purse instead of a pillow, I closed my eyes and fell asleep unnoticed. Fear had somehow completely disappeared. I woke up to a strange sound. It was as if someone was walking in the kitchen, and the floor creaked nastily under his footsteps. When I opened my eyes and tried to understand what I was doing here, I sat down on the bed and shouted, "Is anyone here?" The footsteps stopped. There's obviously someone there. I got out of bed and went into the kitchen. There's nobody here. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. The floor was covered in fresh dirt. What's all this? What's going around here so dirty at night? And where did it go? The thoughts in my head became jumbled with fear. As I turned to leave the kitchen, I saw all shadow flicker into the room. I ran in there. Dirt again. It led towards some sort of small hatch on the floor. Why didn't I see it when I walked into the room? Well, should I go in there or what the hell? I had not yet fought with all sorts of evil. I sat down on the bed and began to think about what to do next. I could hardly sleep anymore. I did not want to run to the car either. I was only dry, and the rain had not subsided outside. In my handbag, I fumbled for my old Swiss knife. At least it was a weapon. But if it was something otherworldly, it would not help me. I mustered my courage and went to the hatch. Shall I open it? No. What for? What if there's something interesting in there? Yeah, like a ghoul or something that's interesting. Well, you have to do something, right? We have to. Finish arguing with myself. I began to open the hatch. Its handle was in this very dirt, and it smelled so bad that I almost saw my lunch today. It smelled like dead meat. This was out of bounds. Well, now that I'm dirty in it, I've got to finish the job. The hatch is open. I shone my phone down there. Wooden steps, going down into the depths of darkness, and nothing else can be seen. Cool. Going down into the unknown. Then I noticed that my phone had 5% of its charge left. Okay, so I go down quickly, look around, send the bad things to the other side, and go to sleep. Sounds like a plan. I just bent down, start going down, when suddenly something pushed me from behind and I flew straight down. Silence. I pain in my head. I was lying on something hard and unpleasant. I felt with my fingers that it was something porous and hard. Bone. It's bone. Instantly, I jumped up and shined the flashlight around me and found that the entire floor of the basement was covered with bones and human skulls. I just went numb with fear. Where was I? Who had pushed me? How to get out of here? While my thoughts were sluggishly digesting the shock in my head, something stirred in the corner. Something was sitting there, eating, judging by the chomping sounds. Suddenly, the sound stopped, and it began to slowly rise and was probably 2.5 feet tall. Dry, long legs. Its arms were below its knees, and it had sickle-shaped fingers or claws on its hands. I couldn't make it out. And its head. Its head was rarely 2 feet. It looked like an elongated, naked skull. There were no eyes, or I just didn't see them. The ghoul lunged at me with a high-pitched howl. I dropped my phone, dodged it, and fell over. Get up. I must get up. I muttered to myself under my breath. Immediately turning around, the monster lunged at me again. This time I did not have time to dodge, and a sharp claw struck my chest. The pain pierced my whole body, and apparently not just mine. The beast roared and fell beside me. The Swiss knife protruded from its chest. I had to run. I had to get out of here. I certainly didn't have a second knife. I jumped up and started scrambling up the stairs, picking up the phone from the floor. Just then I heard that the ghoul was on his feet and was already running toward me. With all the strength I had left, I climbed the very steep stairs, not thinking at all that I was on the ground with rotting dead bodies under my feet and hands. Suddenly, I was dragged down by my leg. It's a good thing my boots aren't laced, they're zippered. Quickly unzipping it in one motion, the bastard had my shoe and it fell down. Opening the hatch, it was already light outside. With a quick movement, I took my purse, and with all my might I crashed into the front door, the one that was locked, hoping that I would kick the hell out of it. It was either because I didn't weigh much or because I didn't have the strength to run, but the door gave me a thud, and I flew back. The deadbolt. There was a deadbolt on the door. I was blind. I got up quickly, ran to the door, removed the deadbolt, and then I heard a nasty gasp behind me. Without looking behind me, I opened the door, rushed out of the house, and ran to my car. It had already stopped raining, and there was fog on the ground. I got in the car and instantly yanked off the handbrake and drove off. I looked in the rearview mirror, and there, all I can see is an old cemetery and no houses. And on the street there were about 5 of those scary creatures, looking after me. I made it to the cottage, though. My friends were speechless when they saw me in the morning, dirty, with a bloody cut all over my chest, without a boot, all disheveled. I told them everything. My friend looked at me in bewilderment and said, "There is no village there. There's only an ancient cemetery, and it was built after. Wait, there was a village, but it burned down over 100 years ago. Everyone who lived there died, and all the inhabitants were buried there, in the place where the village had burned down. Yes, I think we'll take a different road home."